big poppin'. Money in the bank coming, dropping a deposit. Having it my way, so I got these bitches watching. Steady getting to it, couldn't fit it in my pocket. Flexing everything, baby, tell me big poppin'. Money in the bank coming, dropping a deposit. Having it my way, so I got these bitches watching. Steady getting to it, couldn't fit it in my pocket. Flexing everything, baby, tell me what the topic.
What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the bar. It's your girl Henny, and I'm about to pour plenty of the hot Henny that y'all love to sip on. So if you are new here, welcome. Please be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe. Click that notification bell, select all, so that you get notified whenever I do a video. And if you are a returning Mob Down Henny Gang member, now let's get into this content. So as we know, the Diddy trial has been underway, right? And we are on the third day of trial. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, third day of trial, second day of Cassie testifying. Now, I have information for y'all as to why the husband is out of the courtroom. Earlier today, we talked about the mouth sores that she got from all the friction, from all of the mouth mop that she was given during the freak-offs. We talked about the UTIs, but there's been more that came out because, as y'all saw from the title, Cassie received $20 million from Diddy. Remember when she did that settlement? We didn't know how much it was for because it was for a non-disclosed amount, but now we have an amount, and she was naming the male escorts in this. But I know a lot of people have questions because, especially if you're watching that Secret Service Sam guy over there on TikTok, he's making it seem like, oh, this case is boring. He's saying that listening to a victim testify is boring. He's talking about how the government didn't lay out anything that said RICO. He was just talking about domestic violence. And there's been other people that have been murmuring around because I've been poking around in these internet streets and reading little things here and there and watching little videos and stuff of people being a little shady. And one of the things that people are saying is there's no RICO. Where's the stuff that's for the RICO? Well, I'm going to break that down for y'all. And because a lot of people, including myself, were curious as to like, how is this a one-man RICO? Because normally when we hear about RICO cases, it's multiple defendants on a case, right? So like we have the Operation Drawdown, where there may be individuals on that case that have a case, but they're underneath one big operation, one big investigation. So that's how you have this whole organization thing that was going on, right? Right. But when it comes down to Diddy, it's just him, a standalone RICO. So I'm going to break all of that stuff down for y'all tonight. We're going to get into it. And I'm also going to read some more of Inner City Press. I'm going to read some more of his tweets because, baby, he's been tweeting the whole time that court has been going on. And I really, really want to know, how is he doing it? But anyway, salute to everybody that is up here in the chat. Salute to everybody. I see you in here. I know a lot of people are going to be tardy to the party, but that's going to be on them because that's not going to be on us. So let's start off with the RICO. Okay. So now let me explain to y'all what a RICO actually consists of so that we can start going into this, okay? So basically, when it comes down to Justia, that's the source that I'm using right now, okay? That won't lock. All right, so let me go ahead and let me pull this up on the screen so you guys can see this with me and know that I'm not just capping, okay? Y'all can see. Let me get my screen right. I'm not even going to worry about watermarking because this is not something that needs to be watermarked. This is information, okay? So to violate RICO, a person must engage in a pattern of racketeering activity connected to an enterprise. The law defines 35 offenses as constituting racketeering, including gambling, unaliving, kidnapping, arson, schmugs, dealing, and bribery. Significantly, mail and wire fraud are included on the list. These crimes are known as predicate offenses, okay? Now, there are 35 predicate offenses. Let me just tell you guys, and let me go ahead and let me pull these, let me get my notes. Okay? I'm going to break down the 35 predicate offenses that can land somebody on a RICO, okay? Those offenses are unaliving, kidnapping, gambling offenses, arson, robbery, bribery, extortion, dealing in obscene manners, which I talked about earlier, that would include like human trafficking and stuff, dealing in controlled substances, which we know is flug trafficking. I don't know. I got to find a cool word for that because I don't really like the rugs trafficking. But anyway, counterfeiting, theft from interstate shipments, embezzlement from pensions and welfare funds, mail fraud, wire fraud, financial institution fraud, obstruction of justice, obstruction of a criminal investigation, witness tampering, retaliating against a witness or informant, trafficking in stolen property, interfering with commerce by threats of violence, which is the Hobbs Act, money laundering, bankruptcy fraud, securities fraud, false statements relating to federal health care offenses, human trafficking and involuntary servitude, immigration offenses involving slavery or trafficking, violent crimes in aid of racketeering, acts of terrorism, dealing in firearms or explosives unlawfully, trafficking in counterfeit goods, sexual exploitation of minors, alien smuggling, which is like, smuggling people across the border, criminal copyright infringement, and fraud in the sales of securities. Now, I've read down a whole list, okay? But one of the things that you have to realize is there has to be a pattern, and it's required for this person to have at least committed 2 of these 35. So you don't have to commit a whole long list of these predicate offenses. You just have to commit 2 of them and do this for a period of at least 10 years in order for them to be able to charge you with RICO. And the crimes must be related to and show continuity, which means it has to be something that was ongoing, and both state and federal crimes can qualify if listed underneath the Title 18 of the U.S. codes, right? Now, when it comes to Diddy, we know he's currently on trial down in Manhattan, right? And he's facing multiple charges underneath the RICO. But what is he actually facing underneath the RICO and why? I don't know if anybody had broke this down, but I'm going to break this down because I don't want anybody to be confused. I want you guys to be informed. So what he's being charged with is the sex trafficking by force and fraud or coercion. And the reason why he's being hit with that is because he used his influence in the music industry to coerce women into participating in events known as the freak-offs. Okay, so we have Cassie, we have Jane. Okay, and Jane is somebody that we haven't even spoken about yet over here on this channel, but we're going to talk about Jane because Jane came up today, if I'm not mistaken, in the testimony. Okay, and if she didn't, she was definitely brought up on day 1 in the opening statements, which I'm going to give y'all the opening statements as well and break those down because we're going to go through these transcripts and we're going to break them down by section. So we're going to go one video, we're going to go and we're going to talk about the opening statements. The next video, we're going to talk about and read through the actual transcript. What was said in court typed up, okay, by the by Flores, who is the security guard, and by the that was up there testifying on day 1 as well. So now he used that, and the freak-offs involved the use of illegal substances and sexual acts. Okay. And the acts were recorded. Ain't no allegedly or nothing. I ain't gotta say none of that because we know it because the stuff was brought up in court today, baby. They was looking at, let me not even give it to you. Okay. And they were used for blackmail purposes. So that's what is in this case that falls underneath the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, because Cassie was testifying today to the fact that he kept her doing these freak-offs. She stayed with him, not only because she feared him, not only because she wanted to make him happy, but also because he kept blackmailing her with these freak-off videos saying that he was going to expose her. So yeah. All right. The next one is transportation for purposes of prostitution, which is the Mann Act violation. And the reason he's getting that is because he was transporting individuals like Cassie and Jane across state lines to engage in prostitution. By crossing state lines and then hiring these male escorts, that is what got him with transportation for the purpose of prostitution. Then the forced labor, because there's also a portion in the document where they talk about somebody somebody that they named Mia, which I believe is victim 4. Now, I have a lot of documents that I have to go through, and I'm going to dedicate my time the rest of this evening. Once I'm done with all the lives, I'm going to dedicate my time to sit down and try to figure out victim 3, victim 4, because there's a lot of stuff that was going on, especially when it comes down to victim 4. Okay. But they're saying that the Mia girl, she was compelled, not only her, but a lot of people that are around him, the employees and stuff like that. They were forced and compelled to perform labor and services underneath coercion as well. Then there's the kidnapping, because he allegedly kidnapped Cassie. Well, not even allegedly. Cassie is saying he kidnapped me. That falls underneath the RICO. The arson, remember the blowing up of Kid Cudi's car? That falls underneath there. Bribery. He's getting bribery charges because, because of his influence and his actions over others, he was bribing them to do things for him. And then there's the obstruction of justice, where he interfered with the legal process of attempting to prevent the discovery or prosecution of he attempted to prevent the discovery or prosecution of this crime, because remember, they were saying that he actually was witness tampering, that he had reached out to somebody to reach out to people who were involved in this case. Okay. Now, because he was involved in these activities that they are bringing him to court for now, for over 20 years, he definitely meets the RICO. And I'm hoping that I was able to break all of that down for y'all in a way that you guys understand. Now, I know one of the things that a lot of people have been questioning, and we've been keeping our eye on, has been what's been going on with the husband, okay, with Alex Fine. Now, Alex Fine was not in the courtroom yesterday, and today he was not in the courtroom either for the beginning half of Cassie's testimony. But the reason wasn't just because they didn't want him in there because of any influence that he may have had just by being there and, making Cassie nervous or any of that stuff, or even a moral aspect where they were just trying to protect him from hearing certain things. Oh, nay. It was not because of any of that. The reason why he wasn't in there is because Diddy's team didn't want him in there because they were saying that they're going to call him later. They could possibly call him later. Matter of fact, I can show you better than I could tell you. Okay, so this is according to CNN, and this was posted an hour and 13 minutes ago. And they used a photo of him from yesterday. But as you can see, it says right here, 1 hour, 13 minutes ago. Okay, it says that he walked out of the courtroom when prosecution started asking about events of 2008, right? So then it says that he took an aisle seat when she started telling her testimony after they resumed after the break. So in the first half, he was not in there, according to CNN. And then in the second half, he was allowed to be in the courtroom and listen. So the defense for Sean Combs, this is what it says. The defense lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs indicated yesterday they may call Fine to testify about allegations that Combs raped Cassie, okay, Diddy's former girlfriend and one of his accusers in 2008. So the judge allowed Fine to sit in the courtroom to support his wife during her testimony, which began on Tuesday until the 2018 allegations were brought up. So for people who were wondering why he was not in the courtroom, this is why he was not in the courtroom, because he may be called to testify at a later date, which is, if you know, then you know that he was the trainer and he was supposed to be training Cassie, and they ended up getting involved with one another. I mean, there's no other way to put that. So he definitely has a connection. But we're going to get into some of this testimony from the afternoon, because we did read the testimony this morning. We were going through it. Okay, cool beans, Wilson. So we did read some of the testimony from this morning where we found out about Cassie and her mouth sores and these UTIs that she continually had. If you ask me, it sounds like she wasn't allowed to heal from the UTIs, and they just kept getting worse and worse because not only was she not allowed to heal, but she was still being expected to perform in freak off capacities while having a UTI. And it was painful. Like if you ever caught a really bad UTI, you could barely walk. So imagine barely being able to walk and then having to have relations weekly, sometimes for a couple days, sometimes a couple times in the week, but weekly. And earlier we read how she said at some point in time, it was just like that was all they were doing. And they never got to her albums and she never got to make music. She never got to do anything because all they were doing were freak offs, and more freak offs. And she had a 10 album deal with Diddy. So she's never met her contractual obligations because she was busy with him. He was making a freak off all the damn time. All right. So, let's get to where she comes back into the courtroom. Okay, so now here's where we're going to pick up from Miss Johnson, okay? So Miss Johnson says, I have a binder for the court. The gallery will not be able to see the exhibits. Miss Ventura, I will show you some exhibits. And these were exhibits A through 404. Okay. Then she asked Cassie, who is this? So Cassie says she worked for Sean. So Johnson is like, we will call her Mia. So this is where Mia is entering into the scene. All right. When you gave your devices to the government, were they working? Cassie, no, they were broken. Then they put up exhibit 602-A. She said, put that up for Cassie and for the jury only. What's on your skin? So Cassie says oil. So now this is a still of the freak off or, a freak off type of event that's going on. And she has oil on her skin. Now, as you just heard, they did not show this to the whole courtroom. They only showed it to Cassie and the jury. So I guess, remember earlier we were talking about the screen and they didn't have the screen up. Well, apparently they must have been able to get the screen up. I'm going to go looking through some of the other content creators that were there in the courtroom that could actually explain this to us. But she says, Johnson says, when did Sean first hurt you physically? It started in the first year. What staffer was present when Sean was physically with you? So now his team objected and said physical was vague. So then they said punching and hitting, right? Johnson says punching and hitting. So she then rephrases and says, when did Sean first use violence on you? So Cassie says, in New York City, we were in a car with his security and he knocked me around. What did he do? He hit me in the side of my head. I fell to the floor of his Escalades. In January 2009, you attended an event in LA with Sean. Yes. What happened as you left? I've been speaking to a producer about music. Sean called me a slut. I hit him in the face. I'd been drinking. Did you see any injuries? No. I was on the floor of the car and he stomped me. He stomped on my face. How long did that last? 10 minutes. Then I tried to get away, but Sean's security brought me back. Who? Roger Barnes. Now pause. Put a pause in the calls. Pause. Because I got something for y'all. Now, she brings up Roger Barnes. Well, we got the video. So let's hear what Roger Barnes had to say.
Covered in the lawsuit. According to her words, she said in the car leaving the club, Diddy beat her, pushed her into a corner of the vehicle, and stomped on her face. Diddy's security, Roger Barnes, you're actually named in the lawsuit, tried to stop the beating but was unable to de-escalate the situation. When the car arrived to Diddy's house, Cassie tried to run away, but Diddy followed her, proceeded to kick her again in the face.
Right.
Cassie was bleeding profusely and was ushered into his house where she began to throw up from the violent attack. Upon recognizing the damage he had done and the evidence of the abuse, he panicked and he forced the staff to bring her to a hotel suite at the London Hotel, she just said,
right,
where she was required to stay for a week.
Now, she just testified to this. Now, this is coming from the court doc when she first originally filed the filing, and now it's being brought up in court. And look at how this spun the block and how Roger Bonds is going to be more than likely called. Oh, that's what I forgot to tell y'all about him being on the single man RICO. So while we're here, let me explain that to y'all. So just because nobody else is named on the RICO with him right now does not mean anything, because all that really means is that whoever it is that I gotta kind of break this down a little bit better. All right, so Diddy being the sole defendant that's on the case, right? An enterprise has been introduced. It's been established that this is an enterprise, okay? And they call it Combs Enterprise. And it consists of Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global, all right? So he has a business, Combs Enterprise, but they're calling it Combs Enterprise at the same time, right? And the individuals that were helping him, they're described as the people who were helping him to facilitate and conceal the crimes and the criminal activity and the sex trafficking and all this other stuff that was going on, right? But the reason why they are not charged currently is because they may have been offered immunity or plea deals in exchange for their cooperation and testimony against Diddy. So this is why Diddy is appearing to be on a standalone RICO, because all of them people, them staffers and stuff that was helping him, baby, there is a possibility that they're going to be taking a stand against him. And that's why they're not on that case. That's what I wanted to break down to y'all. But let's continue and listen to what let's get back over here. Well, no, we're going to finish because I want y'all to hear what Roger Bonds had to say about this.
Well, in the hotel, she has to go home to her parents, but Diddy wouldn't let her leave. She lied to her mother when the story was kind of started to circulate. And he basically told one of his assistants to buy her a whole bunch of gifts, and they were delivered to the hotel room to try to pacify her.
right.
So the stories pretty much match up.
Exactly.
So everything I just described
is what I'm saying.
Is what you're saying.
Because it's true.
Okay. Did you actually see her at the London Hotel?
Yes.
And
I would go and check on her.
You would go and check on her.
I would go and check on her.
And you described she had a black eye.
Yeah, she had a black eye. And one time that I went, she opened up her shirt because I said, "Yo, Cassie, you okay?" And she was just looking at me. She looked at me like, I looked at her like a daughter at this particular time. But you had to be really careful with Cassie, because if you talk to her while she's alone, she'll tell you one thing. But it was like she was so scared of Diddy that when she got alone with Diddy, she would actually tell him that she was talking to you. So she told me, she opened up her shirt. She only had to open it one button. And she opened up her shirt and she had a purple bruises all over her chest. And she just started crying.
Right. I guess you said that she was worried that it might be more serious, like her ribs were broken.
Right. But he had some doctors go check on her. He didn't want to see her, and he didn't want her around the house because he didn't want to face what he did to her. He didn't want people asking questions about what happened.
Now there you heard it for yourself from Roger Bonds, the man who actually is named, and she's bringing him up right here. Roger Bonds. So now Johnson says, what did they tell you? She says me, but I think she meant you. So Cassie says to go to a hotel. They snuck me into the hotel, covered me up so no one could see my face. How long were you at the London hotel? A week, a little more. An assistant brought me ice cream. What was the assistant's name? Guinevere. Did you feel you could leave the London hotel? No. I understood his capability, his access to the threats he made, When you were taken to the hotel after the assault, were you taken to the hotel after the assault? No. Did you know that his assistant, did you know that this assault incident was reported? Cassie, I know there was a blind item in an internet without our names. So what happened was there was an article that was written that discussed how there was this music mogul and his girlfriend involved in a DV situation, but they never put any names to it. All right. So Miss Johnson says, who raised the blind item to you? My mother. So the defense tried to object. It got overruled. So Cassie continued and he says, this was before FaceTime was very popular. I could hide myself. She asked if it was me. Johnson, what did you say? No. Cassie said no. I didn't want my mother to know something of that magnitude and be in danger. So now just her telling her mother what was going on, she feared that her mother would be in danger, which kind of aligns, like Roger Bonds is saying, like, you got to be careful because Cassie will tell you something when y'all are privately together, and then she'll go tell Diddy that she told you, which means that if she was telling Diddy that she told you, that means that he was coming for whoever it was that she was talking to. That's what I got from that. I could be wrong, but that's what I interpreted. All right. So now AUSA Johnson says, when you went to a party with your girlfriend, what happened? So Cassie says, I saw executives from BET. Then I heard Sean was there. What did you do? I left. I ran out as fast as I could. Why? I thought he was angry. Did he come to the hotel where you were staying? Yes. He beat me up and called me names. My face was bruised. This photo, who is it? So Cassie says, Scott Masuti, known, I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but anyway, that is Kid Cudi. We dated in 2011. Did Sean find out? Yes, in my phone. Sean went through my phone during a freak out. He found an email. About what? Taking my toiletry bag to Scott's the next day. Sean put a wine opener in his hand and threatened me. I called Scott on a burner phone. Where did you go? To Scott's house. Then I talked to Capricorn Clark, one of Sean's assistants. So now we have introduced the Kid Cudi aspect into everything, okay? Now, I will dig into Capricorn Clark if y'all would want. Y'all drop y'all Henny glasses in the chat if y'all want me to dig into Capricorn Clark, and I will definitely do that for y'all in another video. Okay? So, AUSA Johnson says, then what? Cassie says, I went to the house Sean was staying at. He told me he would release videos and hurt Scott. And what videos? Freak off videos of me. So now do you see how she tried to leave him and go be with another dude, and now he's threatening her with, I'm going to release these freak off videos and I'm going to hurt Scott. So she had to come back. Cassie goes on to say that Sean kicked me in the back. I got a bruise. Johnson, where'd you go? To my hotel with a burner phone. The room was torn up. Someone peed all over the floor, pooped in the toilet and didn't flush it. It was gross. It was just before Christmas. I sent an email to my mom in Capricorn from my flight to Boston and Connecticut. What did you write? That Sean said he would release the tape of me on Christmas and he'd had Scott and I hurt. He said he would be out of the country then. So he gonna hurt. Oh, y'all dropped all them Henny glasses in the chat. Y'all say, yeah, we want to know. All right, I got y'all. So she goes on to say, to ask, what are these photos? What are these photographs? So Cassie says, my mother took there in Connecticut of the bruises on my back. So now you're seeing the photographs in court. They were shown the bruises on her back from him kicking her in her back. Okay. So this stuff is no longer allegedly because it's being proven in a court of law that this stuff exists. Okay. Johnson, were you entirely honest with your mom about the bruises? Cassie, no, I said it was the first time. Did you tell her about the freak-offs? Cassie said no. Is it possible to take a break? So she took a break. She needed to take a break, and they did. And then they came back. Okay. And then they continued. So AUSA Johnson says, did anyone come to see you in Connecticut? Cassie says Scott did for a few days. I broke it off with him. It was too dangerous. Okay. So now, of course, Diddy's team, they objected, right? And it was overruled. So she says, Sean said he would hurt us both. Well, hurt both of us. That's what she said. So Johnson goes on and asks, did you go after Connecticut? Where did you go after Connecticut? So Cassie says, I went to see Sean. He was in Arizona, his son, college. I thought my mother was going to LA for work. Did Sean talk about Scott's car? Sean said he wanted Scott's friend to see Scott's car blow up. So now we're talking about the car. And I played for y'all the video from Roger Bonds interviewing with Vlad about the car. Okay? And so Johnson asked her what happened next. Cassie says, we met, Sean, Scott, and me. Scott said, what about my vehicle? And Sean said, what vehicle? And that was the end of the meeting. So she doesn't necessarily speak on the fact that the car was blown up, but it is implied here that this car was blown up. But then again, we also don't have the full transcript. We just have what he's typing and sending out to us on Twitter, which is not going to be a line for line verbatim everything. Okay. So then they go on to say, put up the photo. What is this? So Cassie says, me and Sean in Kingston, Jamaica for sound clash. Okay. Uh-oh. Were you bruised? Cassie says yes. And this photo, what is it? She says, me in Sean's bathroom, September 18th, 2015. What were you doing there? Cassie, recuperating from being beat up from Sean in Las Vegas. We were having an after party in our suite. I talked to a producer and Sean tapped me on the shoulder, called me into our room and beat me, kicked me as I tried to hide behind the toilet. What stopped it? D-Rock and James Cruz came in. It made D-Rock sad. What are these communications? From D-Rock to me, he said, where you at? It's time to ice your face. AUSA Johnson says, why? Cassie says, I had been beaten up by Sean. Were these all the times he beat you? Cassie, no, there were more. With who else did you see Sean be violent? Cassie says, I saw him drag an assistant out of bed. I saw him punch Eli in the head. One time in Turks and Caicos, and he dragged a person. I believe he had a freak off in Turks and Caicos. I can't say that word. Leave me alone. Okay. AUSA Johnson, what floor did you live on in 875 Comstock? Cassie, the 17th floor. Did a friend stay with you? Yes. Sean came and held her and threw her over the patio furniture out on the balcony. Now, if you remember, we read this in a court doc already because we went through a lot of these court docs and we read this part already that he dangled the girl over the balcony of the 17th floor of the building. Okay. I saw Sean bring her back in from over the balcony, then throw her on the patio furniture. And Carrie Morgan, I saw Sean hit her in the head. Did you get drugs on your own? Occupational drug dealers, opiates, Xanax, Valium. Sean would put the pills in a vitamin C bottle on the sink in the New York apartment. He'd say, you can take him. He had doctors who would write scripts in the name of an assistant or in my name. So now this is not uncommon because I've heard of this as well. I was watching something that had to deal with like Hollywood people out there in like Beverly Hills. And it's like they would, matter of fact, I was watching something about Michael Jackson and they were saying that he was getting a lot of his pain meds through like other people's names and stuff like that. So yeah. I believe it. So now they move on and it says your brother's birthday party in Connecticut in 2013. What happened? Cassie said my mother told me someone was taking pictures of me. I went and punched her in the head. You testified your relationship with Sean ended in 2018. How was your health? So Cassie says I was sleepwalking. I had PTSD. Defense objected. The judge overruled. Like, I don't even know why they overruled that, because how are you going to overrule somebody saying that they got PTSD? Like, are you cool? Are you cool? Anyway, they asked, what is this? Cassie says a photo of my front door in 2018. So Johnson says, publish it to the jury. Why is there a knife in there? Sean was coming around a lot, so I had it. August 2018, what happened? We were having a closure conversation at a restaurant in Malibu. He was trying to convince me to go to Burning Man. Were you seeing anymore? Were you seeing anymore? I don't know what she meant by that or what he typed by that. And she says, my now husband. I guess she meant, were you seeing anyone? And she says that she was seeing her now husband, which is the trainer. So now Johnson says, what happened next? So this must be the part where the husband was not in there because they did not want him to hear her testimony. And he may be called to testify because then once he hears it, he's going to probably, they don't want to take the chance of him possibly hearing what she's saying and repeating it. They want him to give his account of version, his account of the version of events. Okay. So she says, what happened next? Sean came to my house and he raped me on my living room floor. His eyes were black. It was like taking something from you. Whew, you cried. What did Sean do? He continued and finished inside me. Then he got up and left. Did you ever have eggs with him again? Yes, voluntarily. We had a good night. I went back to his house. Can you explain why you did that after he raped you? We had been together 10 years. Who did you stay in touch with? Cassie says most people, though I pulled away. What did you message Sean about after that? Just checking in. What did he send you? That he had iPads full of images. Get him his money. So this is what he messages back. Money back for what? For having paid my now husband to be my trainer. What did you write back? Do you want me to tell the truth? It's much deeper than iPads. There was abuse, more than freak-offs. There was a time I couldn't take the pain, tried to walk out in traffic. My husband wouldn't let me. I had trauma therapy. Pause for a second. She tried to walk out in traffic. But she couldn't take this no more. She was trying to unalive herself. Whew. Did you write? Cassie, a book with chapters. My mom helped. Johnson, what did you want? What did you want with the book? That Sean read it. Johnson, what pain did Sean put you through? Cassie, shame. To carry the things that were shameful for him. I took on a lot of responsibility for that I never should have. He brought the concept to me when I was 22. It was expected of me. I felt terrible. Now, can you understand this? So now somebody was asking me how old she was when all of this was going on. It started when she was 22 years old. Very young. He's 17 years her older, her senior. And so this is what's going on. And she carried this with her. She had to go through a lot of healing. Basically, that's what I'm hearing. So how did you get chapters to Sean? Cassie, through my attorney. And I reached out to KK. I asked her if she read it. She said it was not taken seriously. How much did you ask for the book? $30 million. Did you sue? November of 2023. What happened with the lawsuit? It was settled for $20 million in 24 hours. Why are you testifying in this trial? I can't carry this anymore. What's wrong is wrong. I tried people like they were disposable. I guess she meant treated. I treated people like they were disposable. Escorts, anybody. How many freak-offs did you have with Sean? Impossible to know. Hundreds. After you broke up with Sean, did you ever do a freak off? No. And this is where they said no further questions for Cassie, okay? And of course, they had like conversations without the jury being in the room. And you know, tomorrow she's going to basically face the defense now. Now is going to be the time when Diddy's people get up there and they get to question her. But what I'm going to do for y'all right now is I'm going to take y'all to Fox 5 News because I'm trying to see. I have permission to use my bro stuff. I'm trying to see, did he put anything else up? He did. He did put something else up. It's like an hour long. All right, so let me go here to this video first. Uh-oh. Can y'all hear me? Hold on, guys. Okay, I'm back. Did you miss me? Okay, so let's get this up here. And let's hear what Lisa Evers. I said Lisa LaRocca. That is Channel 12 News, honey. That is not Channel 5. So this is what Channel 5, Lisa Evers, had to say about the case. All right, y'all ready? Let's go. So this is what we are hearing from the news outlets, that this is what is going on. Freak off information was given out during this trial, okay, during this time. So I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to hop over to my bro, Uda on Go. I want to also say before we get into this, there was 18. I believe that's what she said. Matter of fact, let's let her continue to talk. She's going to talk about how many male escorts were named. 1 to 4 days long a week. Every week. And then you got to think about the recovery. Remember, we talked about the recovery earlier today, where she was talking about, you know, she had to get IV fluid. She was taking opioids in order for her to just get numb. So she didn't feel anything, like, so she would get time to briefly recover, and then it would be right back in the saddle. Let's have another freak off. Like, bruh, that's crazy work. Now, this case is really taking legs, and it's really going off. Sherman, these were actually, they went by multiple names. All right. Now, according to the transcript, let me see if I can get this transcript up here for you real quick. And I can go to where it said right here. All right. So let me take this down off of the screen. And let me go ahead and let me add this up here. And we're going to get into a little bit of the transcript, okay? So this is the transcript from the first day of trial, where Flores and the first sex worker, I could say that now, we're well into the video, testified. And as you can see right here, it says that he relied on an inner circle of people closest to him, like his bodyguards, his chefs, his chiefs of staff, and other high-ranking employees who ran all aspects of his life. When it comes down to the freak-offs, sometimes he called himself a king, and he expected himself to be treated like one. Okay. For years, his inner circle, his company's resources, he used his inner circle and his company's resources to sexually exploit multiple women, okay, including women he forced and manipulated into having sex with male escorts, meaning men who the defendant paid to have sex with women while he watched, okay? No matter what the defendant and his inner circle made sure he got everything he wanted. Many times that involved committing crimes together and then covering those crimes up. Okay. Those crimes involved violent acts, like when the defendant brought his bodyguard with his to kidnap the employee that was mentioned earlier in this, because this is part of the opening statement. The defendant's bodyguards kidnapped the same employee another time. So there is times when there was kidnapping that was going on. He also called these things king nights. I want to try to get to that because I know that there was something that he was saying. Right here. It says the defendant called these encounters by different names over the years. First, freak offs. Later, wild king nights or hotel nights. Okay. It says week after week, the defendant directed freak offs in hotels across the country and sometimes out of the country. At times, the defendant had escorts and the women traveled from out of state so that the defendant's staff sometimes organized the flights, cars, hotels. The defendant's business paid for those expenses. So this is where you're hearing about the racketeering that was going on. The defendant had particular demands for freak offs. At his direction, the defendant's staff set up the rooms in advance with supplies like his preferred lighting, extra linen, and lubricant. His staff remained on call to refresh anything the defendant needed, like cash to pay the escorts or drugs for the women and the defendant. The hotel rooms were dark. The defendant instructed Cassie and Jane how to look, to dress in lingerie, wear tall platform heels, and have manicured white nails. The defendant selected the drugs for Cassie and Jane to take, usually MDMA, also known as Molly or ecstasy. Now, pause. If you know anything about any of these party favors that we're talking about right now, the party favors, they MDMA, Molly, and E are all different things. Okay, MDMA can be Molly, but ecstasy is not Molly. I can tell y'all that right now. It's two different things, but that's what they're saying because that is what she testified to. Okay, sometimes those drugs made Cassie and Jane sick, but they also made the women more inhibited. Thank you. And sexually aroused. The defendant fed Cassie and Jane drugs throughout the freak offs so they could stay awake and perform for him for hours and days at a time. Once an escort arrived, the defendant, Once an escort arrived, the defendant dictated every step of the sexual activity that followed. Sexual activity that followed the same pattern. And he expected the women to enjoy themselves, to appear to while they did it. So even if they didn't feel up to it, they still had to pretend that they were feeling something. Now, let me give you a little history because we did jump ahead a little bit into this and we are into the opening statements and here we are and I'm not even mad at it. Let's get to it. So now let me explain to you about Jane. Okay. We already know about Cassie. We know about Cassie's story. All right. But Jane was a single mother that he met in 2020 and she fell for Diddy romantically. All right. Then she was introduced to these freak offs and initially she agreed thinking that it was going to be like a one-time thing. Like, introduce something. Hey, sure. I thought it was one time, but it became frequent. So she fell for the trap. All right. And she was offered quality time and dates in exchange for her participation. So if you want to be with me, you want to go on dates, you want to get quality time out of me, you're going to have to do these freak offs. So he was basically like manipulating the fact that she had fallen for him. All right. And he discouraged her from working and began paying her rent. Now, as a single mother, you know that paying bills and stuff like that, if somebody comes in and offers to pay a bill, oh my God, thank you so much. You just alleviated a headache, especially rent. So he offered to pay the rent for her and she was beaten and choked in her home. And then she was forced into freak offs with a black eye. Okay, that's what we know right now. And I'll give you a little bit about Mia. Mia is an employee and was She's saying that she was sexually assaulted multiple times. All right. Diddy's team, they tried to buy hotel surveillance footage of him beating Cassie. Okay. And they offered to pay $100,000 in a brown paper bag. Now, I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but that's a note that I did take from this. All right. So let's get back into what we are talking about. It says they were expected to do it. The defendant masturbated through the freak offs and often video recorded part of them. Okay. This man is in there videotaping these freak offs. And I mean, it's bad enough when you be in a relationship with somebody and you don't want to have relations. You be sitting there like rolling your eyes in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, but you'll be going through it. Okay. You don't want to do it. You find yourself in here doing it anyway. So imagine you can't do that. You got to fake it. Okay. You got to fake it or you're going to get hands, feet, and knees put on you. All right. It says, I want to tell you more about Cassie and about Jane. Now, this is the AUSA Johnson that is telling this opening statement. Because I didn't get to start this off the way I wanted to, we just rolled right on into it. Cassie was a 19-year-old model and aspiring singer with a hit song when she met Diddy in 2006. During that time, Cassie tried to work on her music and in modeling and acting, but the defendant, Diddy, made her turn down many opportunities. Instead, he paid for Cassie's cars, her apartment, and some of her day-to-day expenses. Although Cassie recorded music consistently, Diddy, the head of her record label, had the final say on music that she released. It was never an album, which is true. We never got an album. We got singles out of Cassie. No complete albums. Okay. Diddy started abusing Cassie early on. Initially, Cassie fought back, but time and again, Diddy hit Cassie in the head, threw her to the ground, and kicked her and dragged her by the hair. In 2009, that's when Cassie was thrown to the floor in the SUV and stomped repeatedly in the face to hide her injuries. Diddy forced Cassie to stay in a hotel for weeks. So when somebody asked me yesterday about her being filmed on the floor with sheets over her and stuff like that, oh, that was made to make her look weird. It could have been made to make her look weird, but she was under those sheets covering up the bruises that she had. Okay. He refused to let her leave, and he had a staff check on her to make sure she stayed put. So again, we hear about this staff that keeps coming in to play, right? The defendant also introduced Cassie to freak offs early on. Soon, Diddy made it Cassie's job to find and book escorts for freak offs. Freak offs were happening as often as once a week for days at a time, meaning that for almost half of every week, Cassie was in a dark hotel room, high and awake for days, performing sex acts, and she did not want to do on male escorts. So let's let that dangle for a second. For almost half a week, in a dark hotel room, high and awake for days. You really don't think that this girl is gonna have some type of psychosis? Okay, so Cassie will tell you how she felt like she was choking when the defendant made an escort urinate in her mouth, and how she overdosed at a freak off when she still had an open wound on her face from the defendant's recent assault. Okay, Diddy's physical attacks on Cassie happened at freak offs too. As you will see in a video during this trial, the defendant hit and kicked Cassie in the hallway of the LA hotel, which we know about, trying to drag her back to the room where they had been with an escort. Now, the fact of the escort being there, that's something that that Flores, which is the security guard who was working at the hotel at that time, testified to. And we'll get to that later on in the doc, but we're gonna stick right here with just this opening statement, okay? Because this was good. This was good because this was giving you everything that they were getting ready to tell you. All right. So Cassie tried the first freak off because she loved Diddy and she wanted to make him happy. Again, She did it because she loved him, and then she got trapped in it, just like Jane. After that, she knew it was not something she wanted to do, but because of the defendant, it became almost everything she did. Because if Cassie didn't do what Diddy wanted, the consequences were severe. Physically, the defendant beat her viciously, exploding over even the tiniest, slightest, and beating her to show who was in charge. When we saw that video of him on CNN, when that video started going viral and we watched him put hands, feet, and knee bows on Cassie, he looked like a person who was out of control. But you got to remember, just as much as Cassie was getting high, he was getting high too. So drug induced, yes. He beat her when she didn't answer the phone. When he called, he beat her when she left the freak off without his permission. He beat her when he thought she took too long in the bathroom. Diddy taught Cassie that defying him could and often would end in violence. And when she tried to run away, he always found her, often with the help of his inner circle. And Cassie's career and livelihood were also in the defendant's hand, something the defendant made clear to Cassie. He told her he could destroy her career by releasing the videos that he recorded of her performing sex acts on dozens and dozens of male escorts. So Cassie knew that failing to please Diddy, refusing his demands, had more than just physical consequences. It had the power to ruin her life. Diddy's control, violence, and threats. This is how Diddy ensured Cassie could not say no to him. So time and time again, when Diddy suggested to Cassie that they have a freak off, she knew she had no choice but to agree and went to work setting one up. She texted the escorts, arranged for them to come to the hotels, and put on the performance that Diddy wanted. Her livelihood and her safety depended on keeping him happy. Cassie's relationship with Diddy was complicated. Okay, so now she says you will hear in this trial that both Cassie and Diddy were unfaithful, jealous, and at times angry. But only one of them had power. Only one had control, and that was Diddy. And with that power and with that control, he made Cassie do his bidding in those dark hotel rooms. All right. You will learn though, that Cassie was not the only woman the defendant did this to. This was part of a pattern. Now we're going to get into Jane. Jane has not testified as of yet, but now we're going to hear about Jane. All right. You will learn that, okay, now I want to tell you about Jane. Jane was a single mom who started spending time with Diddy in 2020. Diddy pursued and romanced Jane, who fell in love with him quickly. Jane was not seeing other men, but Diddy was seeing other women at the time. So his relationship with Jane was not at all public. He kept this girl under wraps. For the first few months, their sex life was just the two of them, and Jane was happy. That was until Diddy introduced Jane to freak-offs. One night, they had already taken drugs and had been having sex for hours. Diddy told Jane about freak-offs. Jane agreed to try one to make him happy. To her surprise, Diddy said he would make it happen immediately. That very same night, he took her to a hotel where a room was already set up and an escort was on the way. Jane was nervous, and Diddy directed her step by step. Jane thought the first freak-off was a one-time wild night. Jane was wrong. Diddy continued asking Jane to have freak-offs and promising that if she did, they would spend quality time together. They would go on dates together. They would go on trips. That was what Jane wanted more than anything, a real relationship. So she agreed. She helped plan freak-offs and reached out to escorts. So she swapped places with Cassie. But even though the defendant promised her quality time and trips, he never delivered. Those were just lies he told her to get more nights in dark hotel rooms with escorts. Jane will tell you about those nights in detail, how she wanted the escorts to wear condoms, but many times the defendant didn't let them. And Jane will tell you how he had her take drugs and stay awake and aroused for days, just like Cassie, y'all. Jane tried twice to make it through the night without the drugs. The first time she broke down and had took ecstasy to finish performing for the defendant. The second time, Jane vomited after having sex with one escort. How did the defendant respond? He told her to hurry up and get back in the room where another escort was waiting. So she done threw up in a whole other room. And he's telling her to hurry up and get back in there because he has another escort coming in. What? Who? Early on, Jane told Diddy that she did not like freak-offs and she just wanted to be alone with him. She loved him desperately and wanted a real relationship with him. Diddy didn't listen. Feeling stuck and sick of the strangers and Diddy keep bringing feeling stuck and sick of the strangers Diddy kept bringing to these hotel rooms. Jane tried to assert herself in a small way. She found two men who performed in pornography. She invited them to join the freak-off. That way, Jane could at least choose the other men she was forced to be intimate with. Like he did with Cassie, Diddy eventually took steps to control Jane financially. Diddy wanted Jane available to meet with him at a moment's notice, and he discouraged her from working. Jane's income plummeted. Diddy gave Jane money and later started paying the rent for her house that she lived in with her child. That way, when Jane resisted the freak-off, he told her over and over, when Jane resisted the freak-offs and told him over and over that she wanted to stop, he had the power to coerce her back into the hotel rooms. And just as he had with Cassie, Diddy threatened Jane with the videos he recorded of her engaging in sex acts with the escorts. But the lies, the drugs, the threats were not the end of it. Not even a year ago today, Jane had the worst day of her life. So that means just last year, the defendant came to Jane's house for an at-home date night. She and Diddy argued about another woman that Diddy had been seeing. Jane was upset and jealous. She had now spent years in hotel rooms for forced sex while Diddy took other girlfriends for dates and trips. Jane hit the defendant and threw things at him. Diddy became enraged. So Jane tried to get away from him and hide. She ran to her bedroom and locked the door. He kicked it in. She ran to her bathroom and locked the door. He kicked it in. She ran to her closet and locked the door. He kicked it in. She ran to the guest bedroom and locked the door. He kicked it in. This fool just running around kicking all her doors in. She tried to run out the front door, but he grabbed her in a chokehold, lifted her off the ground by her neck, and kicked her to the ground. Later that night, they fought again, and just as he had with Cassie, the defendant viciously attacked Jane. He punched her in the face, kicked her while she was curled up in a ball on the ground, dragged her by her hair and her arm, and slapped Jane's face so hard she fell over. When all of this was over, Diddy still did not let Jane be. Instead, he told Jane, "You're not going to fuck up my night." Diddy instructed her to put on an outfit and call up an escort for a freak-off. He made Jane cover up her black eye and bruising, take an ecstasy pill, and perform for the defendant with that escort. Jane followed his instructions, like with Cassie. Diddy's violence had gotten him what he wanted. Diddy's sexual violence didn't stop at freak-offs, though. Cassie will tell you about the time when the defendant forced himself on her, having sex with her as she cried and repeatedly told him no. And now we get to Mia, an employee who Diddy worked to the bone for years. We'll tell you about the time that Diddy forced himself on her sexually. Putting his hand up her dress, unzipping her pants, and forcing her to perform oral sex and sneaking into her bed to penetrate her against her will. As I said before, the defendant had the power and the control, endless resources, and a loyal inner circle who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Amidst all this violence, Diddy and his inner circle had to make sure that nothing put Diddy's public image and his power at risk. So as tirelessly as the defendant's inner circle worked to meet the defendant's every need, they also worked to cover up his crimes. And I guess we're going to stop there, and I'm actually going to just highlight this so that I know that we stopped here for the night. We'll just do a red highlight, and we'll know that we stopped here for the night. Child. Now, I want to just hit y'all with this before we leave. There is always going to be a court of public opinion. And yes, we will have the court of public opinion here. I talked about it on my Instagram, and I have not forgotten about it. We're going to have our own little thing. But as you are hearing, this is a pattern. Okay, we haven't even gotten the testimony of Jane or Mia yet, but that is to come. Now, I don't know if you want to continue hearing these court docs or not, but I'm going to put them out anyway, because who knows? Somebody might need to see him. But I will be chopping this video up as well. But I see you are talking. Centric Soul says, Young Miami wants us to believe Diddy changed when he got with her. Girl, stop. Exactly. These have to be some type of cult ritual for Diddy. Has to be. Like, you have to be able to perform a freak off for him in order for you to be able to deal with him. I'm sure some of them was willing, because it was a lot of them there every time. It's possible. I mean, I don't know, because we're not hearing about a lot of them there. We're just hearing about Cassie, and we're hearing about this girl Jane. So I'm not sure if there was a lot of them there every time. You said, what about love, Mom? What do you mean? Gorilla on a football field. Oh, Lord. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video tonight. My takeaway from what we have found out about what happened today in court is that tomorrow, it's going to be a lot of trying to get Cassie to backpedal on a lot of things that she said. They're going to be trying to trip her up. So we're not going to be surprised by all of the stuff, all the attempts that they attempt to do. Hey, FYSMD TV. I don't know what's going on with my damn mouse. I charged it. Yes, he did. I'm not going to make any speculations about the bumps in her mouth. I just know that I've never been in a situation, so I can't say as to whether or not the friction in the mouth caused the mouth sores or not. I know a lot of people are online saying, hold on one second, you guys. We may not be going anywhere. Hold on. Don't leave. Let me call and see. Oh my God. Brian Steele, is that one Diddy's lawyer? Yes. That one is Diddy's lawyer. What did you say? Bring back sex ed in school, because some people still need to understand what consent is. That is true. How do you text me and then you don't answer the phone? Period. I've been saying that. What?
I've been saying that. Some of these, it's not just Gen Z, but it's like in every generation. They need to know what the word consent is and not get mad at when somebody says no. Because some of these people don't take no for an answer. And then they go, "Are you ugly anyway?" And then they just take what they want and think they're all high and mighty. No. That's why some of these people are in jail. getting the exact treatment.
So I'm trying to see if we're going to be having a guest come up. You make some great points, but you do know that no means no, and you do know what to do if they don't want to adhere to your no, right? Okay. As long as you know.
Because I have self-respect.
And you got a crazy mama too. Don't forget that.
I love my crazy mother. I love my crazy mother to death.
And I love you as well. You know, the crazy thing is, it's like, how you gonna tell me set up the live and I'm telling you I'm already live? Okay, we're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna stay on for a few more minutes, even though I know that the numbers have significantly went because people thought I was getting off. And not only that, people are elsewhere. But let's talk about it for a second. You know, this man has used what these women wanted the most, and this is a lot of times what we see in a lot of these situations. And I know that a lot of people have a lot of things to say. Some people feel like, oh, they were consensual, they were consenting adults, they should have known better, this, that, and the third. But unless you've been in that situation, you really can't judge a person because you don't know what it was like to actually go through it. We're not actually getting to see the day-to-day that happened. I am also looking at how this was set up. So it doesn't sound like to me at this particular point in time that Diddy participated in any of the freak offs. It sounds to me like he was deep into voyeurism, where you like to watch somebody else have relations with one another and it gets you off. So it's like he could actually take those tapes and blackmail somebody because he's not on tape. While he's videotaping and he's over there in the corner videotaping everything, he's not performing the acts. So therefore, if the tape gets leaked, it doesn't hold any weight on him. It just holds weight on the females that are involved in this. So in that instance, he has everything to gain and nothing to lose, which now puts a man that's already in a position of power in a higher position of power, because now, what time is it? Ooh, I'm late. I was supposed to be on a whole other live, and here I am still live. They're gonna get me. But anyway, you know, you have to look at the power dynamics as well. You have to look at that. And I think people don't look at that when it comes down to he was over there pee. Uniquely, please. I can't be laughing, bro. Why are y'all like this? Anyway, you can't escape the power dynamic because that even goes into play in everyday life. Like, you know, when you go for training for a job, they talk to you about things like that. This is why you're not supposed to sleep with like your supervisors at work or your boss. That's considered frowned upon, and those are grounds for you to be fired because of the power dynamic. This is why even college professors, even though the student may be over the age of 21, you are a college professor, and therefore you cannot sleep with one of your students. You can have a relationship with them. It doesn't matter because there is a power dynamic, and there is still a power dynamic even in this situation. What I do want to do really, really quickly though, is I want to go over here and I want to see something really quickly because I know he usually has stuff to say. Well, I was going to see, but it doesn't seem like he says much of anything. But I am going to go looking through the content and get you guys some videos for y'all to be able to watch. Y'all are cutting up in these comments. I see you calling him Captain Pissy over there. And sis was good. No info. It's crazy. You might have to set up a live. Yeah, I did. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna give it a few minutes because last time somebody was coming up, last night we had Uda on go up here. Uda was filling us in on what was going on at the trial yesterday. He said he was gonna change his location and he was gonna call back. Do y'all know that as soon as I ended the live, he was like, "Send me the link," and I'm like, "No." I said, "Do I need to?" I was trying to see, do I need to send you a link? You okay? And when I didn't get a response, I just ended the live, right? And then right after I like I literally had just hit end stream on the thing, like the closing credits was coming up on the video, and he was like, "Where'd you go?" Like they hadn't even gone yet. And I literally just clicked end and he hit me. I'm like, I ended it already. I've been on there for 2 hours. Like I'm trying not to be live for 2 hours, but it is what it is. Meantime, in between time, while we are waiting, let's switch gears. I might as well while I'm here, right? Because I can't let everything just slip through my fingers. Let's get into a little bit of Tory Lanez. Now, I'm going to say this because I felt away because I'm like, oh, so the lawyer is saying exactly what I was saying when I covered the new evidence, when I told y'all that Tory was going to go for a new trial. Do y'all remember that? I'm gonna have to pull that up for y'all tomorrow and play it. People was in my comment section because they didn't like what I said, but I was talking about the very thing that this lawyer right here was talking about. But let's take a listen in as Tory's team has something to say.
Into Daystar Peterson's case for almost 6 months now, professionally known as Tory Lanez. And after reviewing the evidence, the reporting, and the legal analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Tory Lanez was railroaded by the former district attorney, George Gascon. He was also wrongly convicted. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, George Gascon would do whatever in his power to ensure that Tory Lanez lost that case. Tory Lanez's defense team have alleged the withholding of exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, among other issues that I was compelled to write an opinion piece for the New York Post. It is true that last week, the New York Post editors reached out to 3 parties, one being George Gascon, Megan Pete's team, and Kelsey Harris. It is also true that Megan's team was the only ones that responded back for that request for comment. I had some glaring questions, and that was the reason for this op-ed. Things didn't make any sense to me, many issues in this case, and I was shocked by the lack of interest from the media to ask very simple questions. There were multiple people with gunshot residue on their hands that night. Mm-hmm. Why didn't all individuals have the residue tested, their DNA tested on the weapon?
Hello?
That's a legitimate question. According to the prosecution, Tory was excluded from the clip of the gun. And according to Tory's defense team, they said DNA analysis showed that there was a 0.01% chance that Tory touched the actual gun itself. Another piece that stood out to me, the call that the prosecution alleged Tory made confessing to a crime. I listened to that call. I'm sure many of you have as well. I didn't hear a confession. But what really shocked me about it is if my best friend was shot maliciously by someone just 2 to 3 hours before, I wouldn't have answered the call, or if I did, I wouldn't calmly have a conversation with the individual of it. And certainly I would ask, why did you shoot my friend? And more importantly, I would never have given you my current location out of fear of you finishing the job. That was something that stood out to me. I also, in my op-ed, discussed Kelsey Harris pleading the Fifth Amendment. She wasn't accused of anything by Megan Pete or the police, and to my knowledge, she wasn't under any investigation. So why plead the Fifth? What also shocked me is the prosecution gave her immunity. For what? What did she do? Is there an allegation of her doing something? I'm not aware of that. Maybe some of you can answer that question today. During the time of trial, George Gascon, just to take you back to where we were at that particular point, he had just barely won a recall attempt. He lost support in many key demographics of voters. Crime was up in Los Angeles County.
Now, let me just say this because I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. So yeah, my bad. But he makes a lot of good points. Okay, let's get to some of the points that he made, because these are some of the points that I was trying to make before when we discussed that Tory may be getting a new trial. And a lot of people were upset with me because I was just like, I don't know. I feel like Kelsey, and a lot of people were not willing to try to even go down that road or see anything. And no, he's guilty. But I understand that a lot of people were like, I need, okay. You know, I don't want to hear that. I don't think that she did anything. But the fact of the matter is, I asked these questions, okay? I asked these questions when we first were looking into all of this. And I said, you know, why wasn't Kelsey GSR'd? Tory was the only one that was GSR'd. And that didn't make sense to me. Everyone should have been GSR'd. And now to hear this lawyer come out and say this, I think they're getting ready to open this back up. And unfortunately for Kelsey, her and Megan are not friends anymore. Megan is not going to hold that loyalty to her. Megan feels that she was wronged by Kelsey because, you know, I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know why she feels wronged by Kelsey. That's a part that I never understood. Because in all actuality, Kelsey was with Tory first. So it's like, where were you wronged at, boo? Oh, Lord. Everybody is hitting me up, and I don't know what to do. I can't. I have to, okay, I got to stick to the script with what I'm doing. Hold on, because I'm trying to change this up really quickly. Then read that and save that. And let's see if we can get some of these numbers up in here, because this is not my normal time to be live. I just want to say that. FYSMD TV is asking who's signing the petition. This is nasty work. Did I hear correctly? There was evidence withheld. I'm going to play it again because I was busy changing the thumbnail. So I'm sorry.
And this case would have been
Ms. Harris's police interview.
UELL.
Wait.
Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry, Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was a witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw two women fighting, two men break up the fight, one man grabbed the other one's arm. Gunshots came from the passenger side. Passenger side is where Miss Harris was sitting. This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson. Even though
I ain't no damn lawyer. I am not a damn lawyer, but damn, I'm good. Henny Glass in the chat if y'all remember when I went over this paperwork the first time. I said all of this. And I'm going to play the video tomorrow and show that Henny be on it. I don't get enough credit. Henny be on. And I'm tooting my own horn. I'm not being cocky. I'm just saying I be on it. I be on it.
Oh, unknown DNA was found on the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA taken? Or was it taken and the information simply never given to the defense? Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr. Jaquan Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken and again, simply not given to the defense?
We want to know them questions too, sir. I've been had them questions.
We don't know. It should have been taken. It is Unite the People's understanding, regular LAPD practice at a crime scene like that. Anybody who's there, the DNA is taken.
I said that. And it ain't just LAPD, that's everywhere. Your DNA is supposed to be taken.
Another irregularity. Why, at Miss Harris's police interview, was a non-lawyer, non-family member record company executive allowed to participate? Highly irregular situation. Normally, we see cases, strangers are not allowed in these things, but it was in this case. All of these things point to the highly irregular nature of his trial and his conviction. It is our contention that he was wrongly convicted. And while we at first were willing to let the process play out, it is our contention now that if he is not pardoned or released promptly, he may never come out. And that would be the ultimate injustice, is that he gets killed in prison for something he did not do. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. Gianno Caldwell, the media member who was working on that op-ed for the New York Post. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. My name is Gianno Caldwell. That is spelled Gianno, Caldwell, Caldwell. I am the founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety at caldwellinstitute.org. I am also a member of the press for almost a decade now. I've been looking into Daystar Peterson's case for almost 6 months now, professionally known as Tory Lanez. And after reviewing the evidence, the reporting, and the legal analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Tory Lanez was railroaded by the former district attorney, George Gascon. He was also wrongly convicted. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, George Gascon would do whatever in his power to ensure that Tory Lanez lost that case. Tory Lanez's defense team have alleged the withholding of exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, among other issues.
Holding exculpatory evidence. Yeah, they're withholding evidence.
Among other issues that I was compelled to write an opinion piece for the New York Post. It is true that last week, the New York Post editors reached out to 3 parties, one being George Gascon, Megan Pete's team, and Kelsey Harris. It is also true that Megan's team was the only ones that responded back for that request for comment. I had some glaring questions, and that was the reason for this op-ed. Things didn't make any sense to me, many issues in this case, and I was shocked by the lack of interest from the media to ask very simple questions. There were multiple people with gunshot residue on their hands that night. Why didn't all individuals have the residue tested, their DNA tested on the weapon? That's a legitimate question. According to the prosecution, Tory was excluded from the clip of the gun. And according to Tory's defense team, they said DNA analysis showed that there was a 0.01% chance that Tory touched the actual gun itself. Another piece that stood out.
Hold on.
The prosecution alleged Tory made confessing to a crime. I listened to that call. I'm sure many of you have as well. I didn't hear a confession. But what really shocked me about it is if my best friend was shot maliciously by someone just 2 to 3 hours before, I wouldn't have answered the call, or if I did, I wouldn't calmly have a conversation with the individual of it. And certainly I would ask, why did you shoot my friend? And more importantly, I would never have given you my current location out of fear of you finishing the job. That was something that stood out to me. Also,
that's a fact. There's no way I would be on the phone with you and you just blah, 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 my friend, my best friend. I don't care what happened. There's no way I would be on the phone with you. And I for damn sure agree, I would not be giving out my location to you either. If I feared for my safety, if I feared for my life, there is no way that you would be getting any type of play out of me.
In my op-ed, discussed Kelsey Harris pleading the Fifth Amendment. She wasn't accused of anything by Megan Pete or the police, and to my knowledge, she wasn't under any investigation. So why plead the Fifth? What also shocked me is the prosecution gave her immunity. For what? What did she do? Is there an allegation of her doing something? I'm not aware of that. Maybe some of you can answer that question today. During the time of trial, George Gascon, just to take you back to where we were at that particular point, he had just barely won a recall attempt. He lost support in many key demographics of voters. Crime was up in Los Angeles County. And this case would have been a silver bullet for him potentially winning. His policies obviously were bad and people were harmed. So that didn't happen, and thank God it didn't happen. At the heart of this injustice is the misuse of gun enhancement charges, a sentencing tool intended for the most dangerous and violent offenders. In Tory Lane's case, these enhancements were not supported by evidence. But George Gascon, interestingly enough, who is someone who regularly would drop enhancements or not recommend them, chose to provide enhancements to Tory. And in his case, in any given situation, according to legal analysts I've spoken with, he would do 1 or 3 years if he did it without the enhancement. That's interesting. Why did George Gascon choose to pursue these enhancements? You know, there's cases I've been looking through which George Gascon has pursued, many in which he utilized these enhancements. A couple come to mind that I would like to reference here. One,
mind you, this is not a lawyer. This is a journalist. This is a journalist doing his due diligence on this story. He works for a news outlet. And this is how he's coming. So my question is, has justice really been served? And look at what happened to Tory just recently. Tory was stabbed 14 times. And at first, let's talk about that for a second. Hold on, let me take this off the screen and let's talk about that for a second. 14 times. And guess what? News outlets were reporting that his injuries were not life-threatening. I know, because when I first made the post on my Instagram, I repeated what I saw in the media. And what I saw was that they were not life-threatening. However, they were serious enough for him to be taken to the hospital. At that time, at that particular time, when we all first heard about him having this incident happen to him, it was not disclosed that he was airlifted. It was just said that he was transported to a local hospital. So, as the chain of events began to unfold, his team took to his IG page to tell us it was in fact life-threatening. That man's lungs collapsed. And then let's talk about the suspect for a second. A lifer? And like they say later on in this news press conference, Tory didn't have any incidents this whole time that he's been locked up. And I also was questioning because they were saying 6:30 in the morning, that this happened at 6:30 in the morning on the prison yard. Now, I've never been to prison, but I found that highly suspect that you're telling me that this incident was on the prison yard. What are they doing on the prison yard at 6:30 in the morning was my first question. That's crazy work. How there was so much misinformation that was given out there, and it was given by media outlets, major media outlets, which just showed me that sometimes you can't even trust the major media news outlets to give you the real, because for the right price, they can be bought to spin a story too, just like any blogger can that's willing to sell their soul. Let me say that. I'm not willing to sell my soul, so I'm not spinning no narratives for nobody. Sorry.
Raymond Danger Gonzalez, a Mexican mafia gang member involved in a premeditated murder of 2 young men in 2017. Despite the brutality of the crime, Gascon didn't recommend enhancements. You premeditated murdered a teenager and another individual, brutal crime. Why would you recommend enhancements, but you would recommend them for Tory? That doesn't make a lot of sense. He also didn't pursue sentencing enhancements for the senseless murder of General Hospital actor Johnny Victor in Los Angeles in 2024. There's a lot of issues with this case. Many, I think, that the media should be pursuing all angles of it. We should not allow there to be unanswered questions. We should pursue open questions without fear or favor to anyone. That includes Mr. Tory Lanez. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If we take those words seriously, we must act when injustice is allowed to fester in plain sight." I founded the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety after my innocent teenage brother was murdered in Chicago on June 24, 2022. I stand firmly for public safety, for victims.
So this caught my eye right here. A lifer had orders from someone. You want to know what's crazy? Word on the curb is that Wack was out here claiming that he had set that up over there on Clubhouse. I don't believe it, because Wack doesn't have ties into this. And I'm going to say this, and my channel's probably going to get in trouble when I say it, but you do always have to keep, at least right here, if not in the forefront of your mind, at least right here in the corner of your mind, always remember this. Tory cracked the code for artists because he was the only artist to sell his records through an NFT and make bank. Do you think that they want somebody to have that kind of power and then be teaching artists how to do this? That would completely cut out the record companies. They're already struggling with streaming and SoundCloud and YouTube, where people can actually get their music popping on their own. And artists come out and make some dope videos that catch everybody's attention. They can then collect YouTube money that cuts anybody out. They pay for their own videos and it cuts the middleman out. So they're already struggling. He cracked a code. You have to remember that. So while we get caught up in the whole, oh, Megan slept with Kelsey's man or slept with Tory behind Meg's back and all of that, while we get caught up in the midst of all of the emotion of everything, there's a reason why this happened and why it's going down. Okay, there. I kind of slipped my tinfoil kufi on real quick and took it off. I think Poppington would be proud of
victims' rights and for holding criminals accountable. But justice also demands that we protect the innocent and stand against politically motivated prosecutions. This is what I believe to happen here. When we imprison the innocent while violent offenders walk free, which is what George Gascon has often done, we undermine the very foundation of our legal system. Mr. Peterson was never given a fair trial, free from bias, political interference, and media-driven pressure. His continued incarceration erodes public trust and diverts focus from the real work of keeping our community safe. Further, while incarcerated, Mr. Peterson was recently stabbed in prison, as many of you know, a tragic incident that underscores the urgency of this situation and the risk to his life while this case remains unaddressed. Governor Newsom, I respectfully urge you to issue a pardon for Daystar Peterson, known as Tory Lanez, in a full and impartial review of his case. California must not be a state where justice is driven by headlines instead of evidence. And in the case of George Gascon, that was often the case. So I encourage everyone here to go to caldwellinstitute.org, CALDWELL, Institute, INSTITUTE.org, and sign the petition. This petition asks for the governor to pardon Tory Lanez. Thank you.
So there is more to that, but basically, my bad. That's what they're coming with. They are asking for a pardon. I know that the dad gets up and the dad speaks, and the dad asks Trump to pardon Tory. They are pushing very hard to get Tory pardoned out of there. The dad goes on to tell a story about how when Tory got poked, he was poked twice in his head, the side of his jaw, in his side, his arms, like in his back, and both of his lungs have collapsed. What do you mean? I did. Can you put up the video? I did. What video do you want me to put up, Tanya? Don't the same people basically that lifer is going to talk because he has nothing to lose. So whoever wanted him to do this is going down real soon. Possibly. You never know what they offered him either to keep his mouth shut. But he was saying how he was put in the back of a vehicle, and as they were riding in the vehicle, that's when they made the decision to airlift him to the hospital. This is crazy. And I'm going to say this again because it really like made me look at things for real, for real. I'm going to say this again. he was presented to us in this incident as having non-life threatening injuries. But when a person has 2 collapsed lungs, that's not non-life threatening. When a person gets poked up 14 times, that's not non-life threatening. And that's how it was originally reported. And if you go to my page and you look when I posted this, it clearly says on there, like, earlier posted, blah, 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 blah. That's highly suspect to me. But anyway, we need to be on the lookout because they are asking for a pardon for him, but they have new evidence. Now, I do know that they have been requesting, he did put in for his appeal. Remember, I told y'all that a while ago, and there still hasn't been any movement on that. That's crazy work within itself, too. There's a lot of moving parts that are going on right now with this Tory Lanez stuff, and I'm just going to keep my eyes on it and keep you guys posted as things develop. But yes, I definitely agree, Queen Grandma Rocks, a cover-up is happening somewhere. But that's going to do it for this video. You know, I thank all of you that tapped in and tuned in with your girl. I will see you all definitely tomorrow. But thank you so much for all of your help in, you know, getting this channel to where it is. Be sure that y'all lean on the like button on your way out. Remember that love is always love. And when you rest, rest well. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace, everybody.